3 sinister stalker tales, haunting truths revealed in terrifying, spine-chilling encounters. The phone rang shrill through the cozy kitchen of Lisa's Maplewood home, slicing through the calm night like a jagged knife. It was that call, the unknown number that had haunted her for weeks. The kind of call that makes your skin prickle and your heart thump wildly. She ignored it, wrestling a sense of dread that began to curl around her throat. It was just another unsettling intrusion on her already chaotic life, right? She wanted to believe that, but the calls persisted night after night, slithering into her mind like a venomous snake. Each time the phone machine clicked off, empty air filled the space with fear. She caught herself peeking out the window more often, her gaze darting to the shadows creeping along the street. There, in the pitch dark, she spotted it, a figure standing across the road, still and unyielding. They blended into the night, absorbing the suburban lull with an eerie stillness, their eyes trained on her sanctuary. Lisa felt the panic tightening as if a heavy fog was settling on her heart. The whispers from her neighbors echoed in the back of her mind now, their assurances ringing hollow. "Nothing to worry about," they muttered, their eyes averted as if caught in a web of raw nerves. Each greeting exchanged felt tainted with concealment. Isolation gnawed at her insides as the world around her flipped, spinning slowly into a vortex of uncertainty. The suburban facade cracked, revealing a chilling underbelly she'd never known existed. Then came the night that shattered her fragile sense of safety. "Promise we'll go to the park tomorrow, Mom?" Jake grinned, his innocence radiating like sunlight breaking through dark clouds. Lisa agreed, underestimating the weight of her words. Thanks to her late shift at the diner, moments like these felt more precious than sliced bread. Yet, when she turned around to check on him, he was gone. "Jake!" she called, her tone rising in pitch, panic pooling in her stomach like a lead weight. The friendly neighborhood now morphed into a nightmare labyrinth of shadows and silent observers, their expressions blank with hidden dread. Desperation clawed at her throat as she dashed outside, calling his name into the oppressive night air. Familiar faces emerged, flickers of recognition glinting in their eyes, yet their lips remained shut. Something sinister vibrated in their silence. "Try the baseball field," one finally mumbled, a tremor in their voice as if they knew more than they dared say. The words echoed like a death knell, pushing her into darker realms. She dashed towards the field, a visceral storm of fear and motherly instinct propelling her forward. The air felt thick, suffocating. Her feet pounded against the pavement, breath ragged, heart racing. The woods loomed ahead, a yawning mouth of darkness, but she pushed on. Then the unmistakable cry pierced through the dreadful silence. "Jake!" The sound echoed, desperation resonating through her bones. It was so close. Just beyond her reach, she pushed into the shadows, the realization crashing down. The figure in the darkness wasn't an outsider, but someone who had woven themselves into her life, someone camouflaged within the neighborhood she had trusted. With a jolt of terror, Lisa felt the chilling presence behind her. The night closed in as she turned, ready to confront the horror waiting just beyond the edge. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A sigh of relief flooded her as she made her way to the edge of the woods, but the sinister feeling tightened. The faintest sound of movement sent shivers racing down her spine. With every step toward the calls, the shadows whispered secrets of betrayal. The eyes of her neighbors glinted intermittently as if they were all in on something she didn't know. They were supposed to be protectors, but did they harbor something monstrous underneath their hollow guises? Just as dread washed over her, she heard it again. A muffled cry, still echoing, but from the direction of that suffocating darkness. Who or what had taken him? The air thickened with fear as she raced deeper into the shadows, the truth weaving a tapestry of horror so tightly wound, that pulling one thread threatened to unravel everything. Was she rushing to rescue her son or into the jaws of the very nightmare that had crept into her life without her even noticing? The night held its breath, waiting for her next move. Lisa spun around, her heart thudding in her chest like a war drum. The figure behind her was cloaked in darkness, features obscured under a hood that seemed to swallow the faint light. Desperately, she strained to see, her breath catching in her throat. "Jake?" she yelled, her voice trembling, racked with panic. No answer came except for a distant rustle in the trees, jagged and unsettling. Each second that slipped by felt like a nail being driven into her chest. What if the figure knew more? What if it had nearly taken him? She took a step forward, adrenaline giving her courage. "Just let him go. You can have me. Just tell me what you want." Laughter, cold and hollow, emerged from the shadows, dancing sarcastically through the air. It echoed against the trees, twisting into the emptiness and hanging there as it faded. Lisa felt the walls of her sanity starting to crack. In a burst of raw instinct, she dashed deeper into the woods, propelled by the muffled cries that beckoned from beyond. The darkness wrapped around her like a predator, its breath hot and stale. Branches reached for her, scratching at her arms, leaving tiny trails of crimson in their wake. Yet nothing could hold her back. The urgency to find Jake overruled her fear. As she stumbled deeper, the familiar sound of the neighborhood faded away, replaced by an unnatural silence. The world felt smaller here, shrinking until it was just Lisa and the cry that echoed out, which was now laced with a sound she recognized. "Mom!" Jake's voice. She spun toward the sound, suddenly aware of how the cries fluctuated. From childlike fear to more profound distress. As if he were trapped. Something in her gut writhed as she felt movement near her. Without warning, an arm shot out from the shadows, grabbing her wrist with a vice-like grip. "Where do you think you're going?" A voice hissed, smooth yet laced with venom. She turned slowly, dread like ice in her veins. "What do you want?" Lisa's voice was barely a whisper now. "Just help me find him," it said, the figure stepping out of the darkness to reveal a face she once recognized, a neighbor, Mr. Thompson, who always smiled just a bit too wide during bake sales. His eyes burned with an intensity that sent waves of revulsion through her. "Help you?" she stammered, yanking her wrist away. "You're part of this?" He chuckled, shaking his head with that same haunted smile. "Oh, Lisa, you have no idea how deep this runs. A game that nobody else knows they're playing." Before she could respond, the shadows erupted, and the sound of laughter rose around them. Shadows darted at the corners of her vision, her neighbors, their faces twisted in fear and exhilaration. Were they mocking her? Their eyes shone with a dark hunger, desperation cloaked in camaraderie. "Run, if you want, but he's already ours," Mr. Thompson whispered. Lisa's heart plummeted as the realization hit like a concrete fist. There was no saving Jake, not from whatever twisted fate awaited him in the dark, not from a neighborhood gone mad. She turned on her heel and sprinted back into the labyrinth of trees, the mad cackling behind her growing louder. But would the woods offer solace or seal her fate? As she ran, she could still hear Jake's cries lurking just ahead, teasing her with the promise of salvation. But a new, dread-filled thought crept into her mind. What if the figure behind it all was someone she had never suspected, and what if they were waiting for her at the end? The trees closed in around her, branches scratching like skeletal fingers, pulling her deeper into the abyss. With every shred of hope fraying, the true monster of Maplewood whispered its name in the stagnant air, weaving shadows into a tapestry of terror. What horrors awaited her at the edge of sanity? And who, if anyone, could she truly trust anymore? Lisa pushed on through the thickening forest, choking back panic-fueled sobs. Each frenzied heartbeat echoed in her ears, blending with the shrill laughter of her neighbors. Shadows chased her, slipping between the trees, whispering her name with voices that twisted her stomach. "Please, Jake. She cried out, "Where are you?" The whisperings shifted, almost mocking her desperation. They danced through the chaos, stitching her doubts into the very fabric of the night. Did they even want him? Or was this a sick game designed to shatter her entirely? Suddenly, another scream cut through the air. It wasn't Jake's. It was deeper, riddled with absolute horror. Ice coursed through her veins, yet it pushed her forward. The night was a living thing now, breathing down her neck, and she could almost hear its heartbeat, slow and malevolent. Branches twisted back, the trees closing around her like a noose tightening. The darkness pressed against her skin, squeezing some last drops of hope from her heart. She had to find him. She had to keep running. The landscape shifted beneath her feet, roots snagging at her shoes, pulling her down. With every step, she felt the weight of eyes on her, monitoring her every move. Would they reveal themselves, or was it too late? "Mom!" Jake's voice pierced through the cacophony, desperate and begging. She faltered, fear clawing at her throat. "I'm coming," she shouted, though her own words felt hollow now. What if he was already lost, ensnared in this nightmare? In that moment of hesitation, a figure broke free from the shadows. Flashes of white teeth gleamed through the darkness. Another neighbor? No, she didn't recognize him. He was twisted, contorted into something grotesque. Lisa gulped down bile, breathing ragged as panic blurred her vision. "Need help?" he hissed, eyes wide and gleaming with insanity. "Get away from me!" She screamed, tearing herself from his grasp, stumbling backward, but the shadows were cruel. They darted and swirled, buoyed by a dark kind of glee. The laughter each neighbor shared bore an unsettling familiarity, like a dissonant chorus judging her for wanting to escape. Each sound of movement reverberated in her chest. She was starting to lose herself, to sink into the madness. Frantic, she glanced over her shoulder, pushing herself to run faster, to reach the remnants of her old life before the nightmare consumed everything she loved. Then, a flicker of movement caught her eye. In a clearing just ahead, she thought she saw Jake's silhouette standing still, as if waiting. But something was off the way he held himself, almost eerily calm amid the chaos. "Jake?" She called out again, forcing her faltering legs to go faster. The boy didn't answer. Instead, he turned and melted further into the darkness as if he, too, belonged to it. "Jake!" Panic gripped her again, and she lunged forward, hoping she wasn't chasing a mirage, but as she entered the clearing, the laughter fell silent. The forest seemed to hold its breath, and the world spun around her. Thick layers of silence wrapped around her like fog, and her gut twisted with an uneasy realization. The truth was choking, tangling itself into her instincts. What if the game was actually about her? Ahead, the outline of her boy blurred, flickering like a candle wavering in the dark. Terror bloomed in her chest when she saw a figure stepping out behind him, a crooked smile twisted across a familiar face. "Welcome home, Lisa," the figure crooned, radiating a sinister warmth that made her skin crawl. Just as the edges of the forest began to shift again, enclosing her in even tighter, she heard a soft voice behind the figure. "Mom, help me!" Lisa's heart raced. Who was the last monster, and how deep did betrayal run among those she once trusted? With every ounce of hope dissipating, Lisa took a breath full of dread. Could she reach her son before it was too late? And what would it cost her to uncover the truth? "Stay back!" Lisa shouted, her voice cracking as her throat tightened. The figure laughed, a low, rasping sound that echoed through the silent woods like a death knell. "Come now, don't you want to see your boy?" It stepped closer, its silhouette sharpening in the dim light. A long coat hung off the figure's frame, swaying with each predatory movement. But it wasn't just the way it stalked that had her heart pounding, it was the unmistakable familiarity behind that grin. "Let him go!" She screamed, desperation clawing at her insides. She took a hesitant step forward, but the forest seemed to shift, roots snaking out to trip her as if they were alive. "Mom!" Jake's voice broke through the tension, almost a wail as he took a step back. His face was pale, eyes wide but unblinking. "Help me." Lisa felt her breath hitch in her chest. She couldn't tell if she was looking at her son or a decoy, a bait dangled in front of her just to see how far she would go to reach him. But he appeared trapped in the grip of that thing. She couldn't let fear paralyze her. She had to act. "Jake, run!" she shouted, adrenaline surging through her veins, but Jake didn't move. His gaze was fixed. Unyielding. The figure's crooked smile widened, revealing the chaos held in its heart, an empty void mixed with madness, as if it fed off the fear that radiated from her. "Why don't you join us, Lisa? You've always been part of the fun," it crooned, mocking her every breath. The shadows around them seemed to swell, feeding on the chaos. Lisa's mind raced, desperately searching for a way to dispel the grip of darkness. Remember the stories. Keep pushing. She felt the faintest flicker of resolve stir within her. "Jake, please run." Her voice tremored, but she forced herself to take another step closer, not allowing the fear to consume her. To her shock, the figure's laugh turned to a shriek, a sound so raw that it shattered the silence, and for a fleeting moment, its grip seemed to loosen around her son. Was it a weakness? Could there be power in confronting this malevolent force? "Join us, Lisa. You can't fight what you are." It hissed, advancing toward her, but she pressed on, holding on to Jake's gaze, hoping to pull him back from the brink. "Don't believe them, Jake. You are stronger than this." The shadows writhed around her, cold air brushing against her skin like fingers pulling her back, trying to drown her words in whispers of doubt. "Mom." Jake's voice trembled, breaking through the iron grip of the figure for just a heartbeat. Suddenly, the world twisted. The ground swelled like a wave, revealing blackened roots and cavernous holes. The laughter resumed, a ghastly symphony alive with malice. "You don't get to leave, Lisa. No one does except him." In that moment of distraction, Lisa lunged forward, desperate eyes locking onto her son. But as she moved to reach him, the figure lashed out, a blinding speed snatching at the air between them. Lisa barely dodged, sweat stinging her eyes as she pressed forward. "Jake, come with me," she yelled, heart pounding louder than her feet pounding against the forest floor. But darkness folded in, snatching at her ankles, dragging her back. Distant screams echoed around her, pulled from everywhere, blurring the line of reality. The shadows thrummed with sinister glee, and her will began to waver as the laughter tightened around her like a web. "Mom!" Jake's voice faltered, a sound that splintered straight through her chest. She could see him now, his body rigid and trembling in that unnatural hold of the figure. "No. I will not abandon you." The words ignited something deep in her, a flare of defiance. The fear shifting in her stomach turned into rage, and that rage sparked a wild clarity. Perhaps the truth was worse than the shadows, but to save her son, she had to uncover it. "Let him go!" she screamed, a force that shattered the night. The shadows recoiled, a moment's pause in their haunting grip. The figure, caught off guard, faltered, just long enough for Lisa to see the vulnerability beneath the madness. Her heart raced with the taste of hope. But what lay ahead? Was this the turning point, or had she only awakened something far darker? As the shadows roiled and whispers spun faster, Lisa prepared herself for whatever lay on the other side of truth. But was truth worth the price of everything she once held dear? The shadows groaned around her, tightening like a vice, a dark echo of her defiance. Lisa could feel the cold tendrils choking the hope that had ignited in her chest. With every heartbeat, the laughter of the figure grew louder, swirling through the trees as if the forest itself were mocking her. "Mom!" Jake's plea cut through her chaos, raw and desperate. The figure's grip held tight, yet his voice carried a flicker of something, strength. It was a spark in this darkness, and she had to feed it. "Jake, remember when I told you to be brave? You are stronger than you know." As if on cue, Jake's eyes flickered, revealing a hint of recognition. The laughter faltered momentarily, replaced by an unsettling hiss. "Oh, sweet Lisa, you think words will save you?" The figure leaned closer, a grotesque smile stretching across its face, twisted with malice. "I don't need words," Lisa replied, forcing the trepidation from her voice. "I need love. And oh, how I love my son." The shadows around her shrieked, flaring in intensity like oily flames. They lashed out, sending a wave of pure dread crashing over her. Lisa stumbled, nearly losing her footing, but she pushed through. She was not just a mother, she was a force to be reckoned with. Breathless, she fought against the darkness, charging toward Jake. Each step felt like wading through syrupy despair. But then she saw at the moment of vulnerability again, the figure's eyes flickering with uncertainty. Time slowed. It was now or never. "Jake!" Lisa shouted, reaching for her son. With a primal roar, she threw herself into the shadows, feeling their icy grip scratch and tear at her. The laughter turned to screeches, echoing off nearby trees, as if they were all part of a twisted concert. The shadows recoiled, hungry yet fearful of her incandescent roar. "Yours holds no power here. I will not let you take him." Jake's eyes went wide as he took a step forward, breaking something within the figure's grasp. "Mom!" he cried, finally stepping out of the figure's hold. Energy surged through Lisa as she felt the grip on her heart loosen, freeing her momentarily, but it was a feeble victory. With renewed rage, the figure lunged toward Jake, its long hands clawing at the air. Lisa's heart raced as she wrapped her arms around her boy. They were one now, both trembling from the corners of terror, desperation setting in. "Run!" she shouted, shoving him away with all the strength she could muster. Time stretched, seeming to last an eternity as Jake faltered, torn between fleeing and staying by her side, but the figure's laughter chased them. It fortified, power feeding off their fear. "You can't escape the truth, sweet boy. You're just like her, lost in the dark." With a final push, Lisa screamed, "Go!" Confusion flickered through Jake's eyes, but instinct kicked in, and he bolted into the depths of the woods. She felt a pang in her heart, the cost of protecting him greater than anything she had ever known. That a howling wind rushed around her, and with it came the feeling of being pulled into the abyss. The figure towered above her now, nearly tangible with hate and hunger. "You will never know peace, Lisa. You are bound to me. Maybe. But I'll fight you with everything I have." The shadows filled her vision, and in that dark, something cracked inside her, a dawning realization. What if her fear was tied to something even worse? Deep down, buried within her, there lay a secret she had been too scared to confront. "Who are you?" she whispered, her breath turning to ice. "What do you want?" A twisted grin formed on the figure's face, teeth glistening in the thin moonlight. "I want what you fear the most, dear Lisa, the truth of who you really are." As the shadows lunged, merging into a vortex of darkness, Lisa braced for impact, heart pounding against her ribs. The suffocating force pulled her in, tightening with every heartbeat. And then, silence. What lay beyond? Would she emerge whole or in pieces? Was the truth worth the tearing, the ripping, the damnation? The darkness closed in around her, leaving only an echo of her own racing thoughts. What truth could possibly bind her fate to this monstrous being? The void swallowed her whole, dark and suffocating. Lisa felt weightless, suspended in a realm where time had no meaning. The minutes turned into hours, each heartbeat a drumroll heralding the unknown. Panic clawed at her throat, but deep down, she understood the stakes had shifted. Suddenly, fragments of memories erupted from the dark, vivid and chaotic. Faces swirled around her childhood friends, family gatherings, whispered secrets. She saw herself laughing, smiling, bathed in the warmth of love. But then, shadows wormed their way into these recollections, twisting joy into torment. "Mom!" Jake's voice echoed through the haze, tethering her back to the moment. His image flickered like a faulty bulb, glowing bright before plunging into darkness. "Help me." "No!" she screamed, grasping at the emptiness around her. "I want to leave you." But the shadows writhed with glee, consuming her cries, mocking her desperation. "What do you want from me?" she shouted into the abyss, her voice cracking. "Tell me what I need to know." A rush of cold air swirled through, and the laughter of the figure returned, more chilling than before. "You know the answer, dear Lisa. It's buried deep, hidden by the very walls you've built to protect yourself." The weight of her fear pressed in around her, a reminder of the childhood she had buried so long ago. A rush of imagery flooded her mind, her mother's anxious eyes, whispers of secrets darker than the night itself. They had always warned her not to go too far into the shadows, that some truths devour the light. "Stop!" she barked, feeling the resolve strengthen inside her. "You won't take anything from me, not my son, not my past." The darkness howled as if in response, the shadows recoiling, momentarily disrupted. She had felt power ripple through her as she confronted the truth, not out of fear but out of sheer will. The figure swayed, its grotesque form wavering like a mirage. "Brave words for a coward," it hissed, narrowing its hollow eyes. "You've hidden from yourself for too long." Images flickered more violently now. A dark room filled with echoing footsteps, a childhood friend's terrified scream, the corners of her eyes catching glimpses of something lurking. The figure thrived on those memories, feeding on her guilt, her anger. "I am not afraid," Lisa screamed. The words rang out, reverberating like a war cry, fueling her inner fire. "I will face the truth." And then, in a flash of clarity, she remembered guilt not for the past but for what she had allowed to fester within. A secret hers. It wasn't just the fear of darkness but the terror of knowing she was always a part of it. As if sensing her breakthrough, the shadows roared back to life, a cacophony of swirling rage. The figure's smile twisted into a snarl. "You think acceptance will save you? You belong to the shadows, Lisa. You always have." With a powerful thrust, she focused her heart and summoned memories of love, of Jake, pure, innocent love. "You don't control me. I will not be defined by my fears." The darkness thrashed and strained against her words. For a moment, it felt like the ground beneath them shattered, light bursting through the cracks, illuminating the abyss. The figure shrieked in fury, the sound piercing, echoing through the very fabric of shadows, but just as quickly, the light flickered, and the figure's grip on the shadows tightened. "Ah, now we come to the crux of it all." The voice was soothing, almost familiar. "You say you crave the light, yet the darkness is where you feel at home." Lisa's heart raced. What could be waiting for her just beneath that surface? As the shadows angled closer, she realized her fight was just beginning. "Do you want to know the truth?" it whispered. "Shall I reveal the depths of your soul?" And just like that, the wind turned sharp, swirling around her as she stumbled back, unsteady. The vast clearing began to close in, and with it, the terrifying knowledge of just how fragile this newfound clarity was. "What will you discover?" the figure taunted, its voice echoing like a thunderclap. "What truth will you unearth?" As the shadows danced around her, Lisa braced herself, her mind racing. She could either fall into despair or rise and fight. But the lurking question clung heavily: would the truth she uncovered be more horrifying than the dark? Behind the veil of shadows, something began to stir. The shadows twisted, drawing closer, pulsating like a living organism that thrived on her fear. Lisa's breath quickened, her chest tightening as the figure's form became clearer. Dark, gnarled hands reached out, beckoning her, promising revelations but threatening her very existence. "Face it, Lisa," the voice hissed, a slick, oily sound that coated her mind. "Do you think the truth will free you? Or will it bind you more tightly forever?" Memories thrashed within her, the the sound of her pulse drumming in her ears. She thought of Jake. A child's laughter, pure and untainted, breaking against the suffocating darkness that threatened to drown her. A flicker of hope ignited, but the shadows snuffed it out in a rush. No. She clawed at the air, defiance surging through her. I know you. You're just part of my fear. You can't control me anymore. The laughter erupted, a mix of disdain and amusement that echoed around her. How noble of you to try. But every step you take towards the light, you are met with a truth that's darker than you can imagine. With a jolt, images flooded her mind, the basement stairs in her childhood home, the smell of damp and decay, the whispers that turned into screams. Her heartbeat thundered as she remembered the terrors lurking in that oppressive darkness, a twisted version of her mother's face, eyes wide with panic. Let me show you one last time, the figure purred, and with a twisted grin, the shadows parted, revealing a path that spiraled downward. Lisa hesitated, the choice heavy in her gut. She could turn away, refuse to uncover the reality. But Jake's voice rang clear again, sharp through the haze, filling her with dread. Mom, please. I need you. Jake. She lunged forward, fear transforming into something sharper, something dangerous. The shadows lunged with her, but her resolve struck like lightning. I will find you. She screamed as she plunged down the darkened path, and with a sudden snap, the world shifted around her. The shadows closed in, growing denser as the air thickened. She found herself in a long corridor, walls lined with pictures, distorted faces twisted into grotesque grins. Horror dripped from each image like stagnant water, seeping into the ground beneath her. What is this place? She managed through gritted teeth, repulsed but drawn in by the weight of dread that anchored her feet. This is the gallery of your past, the figure said, its tone an unsettling purr. Each of these moments holds a piece of you. Each reflection whispers of choices unmade, of sacrifices too great to bear. Lisa felt the corners of her mind fray, threads splintering as she caught sight of one familiar face, the childhood friend she had abandoned in fear. The girl smiled once, a bright, innocent thing. The memory unfolded in hazy colors, but the scene shifted fast. Now there were screams. Then darkness. No. I didn't mean to, Lisa gasped, a knot of regret tightening in her throat. I didn't know she would, but you did know, it interrupted, pulling her deeper. Do you want to find her? Are you prepared for the truth of what you lost? The corridor stretched endlessly, shadows creeping closer, suffocating every ounce of resolve. The walls pulsed, and Lisa could almost hear her friend's voice mingling with the taunts of the figure. The agony of lost possibility pierced through. Face the fears you left behind. Or will you box the light away forever? It crooned. Lisa's heart raced. Could she confront her past? Would it dissolve her sanity or set her free? The shadows spiraled, urging her forward, or was it pulling her into a darker fate? She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. I want the truth. All of it. With that declaration, the atmosphere jolted, a hard crack of reality clashing against her unyielding spirit. But as she stepped closer to uncover forgotten horrors, a sense of dread unfurled. The presence of something far worse than her secrets lingered, lurking beyond the darkness. Are you prepared to pay the price? The figure whispered, its voice burning like a brand. The truth is never free in that moment. The corridor pulsated as chaos erupted around her, shadows twisting into a monstrous form, a reminder that some truths were buried too deep and the worst horrors might be waiting just beyond the threshold. What else might she awaken with her inquiry? What horrors waited in the whispers of her own past? The corridor trembled as shadows closed in, pulsating with a life of their own. Lisa felt an icy grip around her heart, a foreboding tightening as the figure loomed, a grotesque silhouette against the flickering darkness. Each heartbeat echoed, a reminder of her fragile nature in this chilling world. Run, Lisa! A voice cried, shattering the air. It was her own, a child, small and scared, resonating in her memory. Suddenly surrounded by echoes of laughter and cries for help, she stumbled backward, the air thick with confusion and dread. The figure's mocking laughter filled the space, a dreadful lullaby that seemed to weave around her like a noose. You think you can escape the echoes of your past? They cling to you, waiting for the right moment to drag you down. The walls shuddered, faces in the pictures twisting in agony. Each face bore witness to moments marked by negligence, despair, and tragedy, the byproducts of choices she'd rather forget. She flinched, shadows reaching out, coiling like serpents around her legs, but her resolve flared like a candle against the storm. I won't let you win, she spat, her voice a tremor in the darkness. The figure receded slightly, but the shadows seemed to multiply, swirling in dark patterns. Foolish girl. The truth is always closer than you think, haunting your every decision. You want to find Jake? The price is knowing every ounce of what you've done and what you've left undone. Lisa took a wary step, drawn toward a particularly unsettling painting, a familiar scene unfolding. It was her home, the place where she once felt safe, yet depicted as a twisted nightmare. The laughter of children echoed hauntingly from within. With each step closer, the door appeared, ajar, light spilling outward, illuminating figures trapped in shadowy bounds, screaming silently. Lisa! The children's voices rang out, a chorus of desperation layered with joy. Save us! We remember, don't you? No! She protested, heart racing at the memories flooding back. The childhood promises, the forgotten games, the distant friendships flawed yet cherished. The agony of what she had willingly let fade, buried under layers of trepidation. Join them. Join the chaos of your choices, the figure hissed, drawing closer, its cold breath chilling her bones. Accept the truth, and you will save them. Stop! Lisa shouted, desperation clawing at her throat. The truth is buried. I want none of it. And then she heard it, a whisper like shattered glass, cutting through the din. The only way is forward. It was the voice of the girl she had abandoned. Face the reality you rejected. Only then will you find what you seek. Like an electric charge, Lisa felt a surge of defiance. Stepping forward, she pushed against the suffocating shadows. What I seek is my son. Show me where he is. An intense darkness swirled, revealing a pathway through the grotesque gallery. Figures pressed against the walls, each breathing a sigh of longing, of lost moments. The cold seeped into her, but she pressed on, driven by the necessity, driven by Jake. The whispers grew louder, echoed by wails that clawed at her sanity, but one voice pierced through, Lisa. I need you. Her heart cracked wide open, a fragile hope diving into the abyss. She fought against the swell of despair. Jake! I'm coming. The corridor twisted, bending and warping as she ran, shadows thrashing wildly around her. Familiar faces flashed before her, regret, guilt, and unanswered questions bathed in stark horror. She felt the weight of their gaze, accusing, pleading, tethering her to their reality. Suddenly, in the distance, a shimmer of light flickered, a beacon of hope. She sprinted toward it, each step a defiance against the darkness threatening to consume her. Faster! The whispers urged. Before it's too late. The light grew, stretching and warping as she approached. But just as she reached out, it flickered violently, and the walls began to shake, as if protesting her claim to hope. What awaited her there? Would the truth be the salvation she sought, or the darkness she feared? Let us in, Lisa. The shadows roared, their cries echoing through the corridor. The walls trembled around her, shadows writhing like live creatures, desperate to hold her back. With a deep breath fueled by her love for Jake, she pushed through, and darkness swelled behind her like a tidal wave, an abyss threatening to unearth her buried nightmares. Would she find Jake in the light, or was she merely awakening yet another horror? She didn't know, but one thing was certain: there was no turning back now. The truth was unraveling before her, and with it, the chilling reminder that some truths might bring her face to face with the very thing she feared the most. What if she couldn't handle what was waiting on the other side? What if it was worse than the shadows? The light flickered again, almost playful in its taunting. Lisa hesitated just a heartbeat, anxiety racing through her veins. What if the light held a truth too horrible to face? Her skin prickled with dread, but Jake's voice pushed through the panic. "Mom! I need you!" She gritted her teeth and lunged forward, shoving through the veil of light. An electric shock rippled through her, color bursting like fireworks in the dark. The corridor dissolved behind her, shadows evaporating, leaving nothing but an eerie silence that stretched for eternity, but silence was a lie. Faint whispers floated around her, a tapestry of pleading voices, mistrustful as if accusing her of something unseen. Lisa squinted against the glow. The room was bathed in an unsettling light, too bright, too unforgiving. Walls of glass surrounded her, reflecting moments of her past like 1,000 shattered mirrors. She stepped forward, heart thudding in her chest. Each reflection showed her younger self, a girl brimming with laughter, untouched by regret. But as she moved closer, those faces dulled, twisting with scorn. "Look what you've become," they sneered. "Stop it!" she shouted, clutching her head. But the reflections only laughed louder, their gaunt faces sharpening like knives. "Dance with your past, Lisa. Show us what you truly are," they hissed, their voices blending into a discordant symphony of terror. "Jake! Where are you?" She spun, desperation clawing at her throat. Just beyond the glass, a shadow flitted by, and for a brief moment, hope ignited. A flicker of movement, a familiar silhouette, her heart soared like a bird taking flight. But the joy was cut short. A heavier presence loomed closer. The windows began to pulse, black stains creeping toward her, warping the glass. "You ignored your past," the voice of the figure she faced turned mocking once more. "No wonder it never forgot you." Lisa turned to the voice, eyes blazing. "I refuse to be held hostage by my mistakes. I'm done running." With a roar that reverberated through her bones, she smashed her fists against the glass. Gritting her teeth against the shards of memory cutting deeper, she felt the fog of despair lift slightly. But the shadows wouldn't give up so easily, the pounding intensified, and the floor seemed to sway beneath her as she fell to her knees. "Jake! Please!" she cried, her words splattered by the chilling air. Suddenly, a bubble of silence grew, growing larger and larger until it broke, revealing a vision she had dreadfully suppressed. There was a room, dimly lit but familiar. The air smelled of dust and betrayal. A voice cried across her memory, one she thought she'd buried, crafting it into something unbearable. "You left me." It echoed. The child slumped over a table, hidden and forgotten. The weight of abandonment hit her like a sledgehammer. "No, no, no." She shook her head violently, desperate to erase the vision. "I didn't mean it. I tried." But the reflection laughed, unforgiving, relentless. "The truth doesn't disappear, Lisa. It will haunt you until the end. Can you face it?" The revelation came crashing down, sharp and clear. Every decision, every fear woven into the fabric of her essence. How had she forgotten? Just then, through the haze of memories, she glimpsed a figure, a flicker of movement from the corner of her eye. "Look closer," it beckoned, and there, beneath the weight of the shadows, was Jake, eyes wide and pleading. "Help me." He reached through glimmering glass, grasping at her with terror etched on his features. Her heart throbbed. "I will. I promise." Lisa lunged for him, but the glass melted away like ice. Instead, she stumbled forward into a chasm, voices and shadows closing in. "Join us," they screeched. "Become part of the echoing past." Choking on the darkness, she clutched at the empty space around her. "No. I am more than my failures." The abyss writhed, and with a final, desperate scream, she expelled her fear, unleashing a maelstrom of light that fractured all around her. In an instant, she was ripped back from the edges of despair, every breath tinged with panic. Lisa clung to the hope of Jake's presence, knowing the truth now, feeling its heavy weight press upon her. Survival or acceptance? As the world tilted and twisted, she knew she had to make the choice, but what she didn't know what lurked beneath the surface was the real horror of her past waiting to pull her under again. Lisa steadied herself, heart pounding. "I'm coming, Jake." But would her resolution be enough? Would she truly find her son, or would the past consume her whole? And behind her, the shadows whispered, knowing the fragile thread that connected love and fear was about to be tested in ways she'd never foreseen. The shadows shrieked and recoiled, twisting violently as Lisa charged forward. She could feel the warmth of the light beckoning her, and each step dissolved her fears. "I'm coming, Jake." The words echoed like a sacred promise, a beacon cutting through the suffocating darkness. Behind her, she could hear the mocking laughter wilting into silence, replaced by the desperate cries of her son. "Mom! I need you." The urgency in his voice shot through her heart, giving her the strength to push beyond the barrier of doubt shackling her. She churned through the remnants of her fears, grasping the flickers of hope that shone despite the dampening shadows. Suddenly, she broke through. A blinding light erupted, enveloping her in a warmth that felt like home. Lisa stumbled into a clearing, the air thick with possibility. She gazed around, expectant, holding her breath. And there he was. Jake stood in the center, arms outstretched, eyes wide with unbridled hope. "Jake!" She gasped, tears streaming down her cheeks. She rushed towards him, arms welcoming him into her embrace. But as she closed the distance, Jake's eyes mirrored something deeper: fear, confusion, a hint of something twisted. "Mom, I can't move. It's here." The moment froze, and Lisa's heart slammed into her ribcage. The shadows lurked at the edges of her vision, coiling like serpents waiting to strike. "No!" she shouted. "You can break free. Trust me." She felt their grip tighten around them, binding her son to the very darkness she had fought to escape. "Let him go." Her voice roared, fury igniting the promise of hope inside her. With every fiber in her being, she pushed against the pull of the shadows. The air rippled with energy, and light surged around them like a rushing river. With each pulse, the shadows dilated, gnashing and clawing as they began to withdraw. "You think love can protect you?" The shadowy figure hissed, its voice slithering through the air like smoke. The twisted features emerged, contorted and furious. "Face it. This world is bound by fear, and you've failed to protect what you claim to love." "Never." Lisa clenched her fists, tears blurring her vision. "I've made mistakes, yes. But I won't let my fears define me. I refuse to be chained to the past." With that declaration, something inside her cracked open. The echoes of her childhood, everything she'd buried, surged forth, anchored by the love she felt for Jake. "We are not bound to darkness," she screamed, channeling all her anguish and hope into that moment. The realization coursed through her veins, igniting the very essence of her being. In an explosion of light, the shadows cried out, retreating like frightened animals. Jake stepped closer, the darkness dissolving from around him in wisps. "Mom! I can see you. Please." His voice, once muffled, now broke through the haze, full of life. "I'm here. We're together." With one final surge of determination, Lisa stepped into the heart of the light, drawing Jake with her. The shadows howled as the brightness consumed them, unraveling their icy grip like a fallen house of cards. As they stood together, enveloped by the warmth of that radiance, the shadowy figure still clawed at the edges, unraveling into nothingness. "You can't escape what you are." It screeched, but Lisa felt no fear in its voice, only the desperate rage of someone losing their power. "No!" she shouted, her voice ringing strong and true. You're wrong. Love will always conquer. With that, she and Jake stepped forward into the pulsing light, and in an instant, they were free. The darkness shattered behind them, releasing a final throaty wail before collapsing in on itself forever banished. Outside the shadows, the world opened up before Lisa, vibrant and alive. She breathed in the cool, fresh air, her heart still racing with the thrill of freedom. Jake was right by her side, his face a mixture of exhaustion and relief. "Mom, we did it." He beamed, his innocence radiating hope. "Yes, we did," she whispered, wrapping her arms around him. As they embraced, Lisa could feel the enormity of what they had faced together, but also the beauty of what lay ahead. Together, they had faced darkness and come out unscathed. "Let us go home," she said, her heart full. As they turned, the shadows faded into the past, a reminder of struggles faced but no longer defining their story. Stepping hand in hand into the light of a new day, Lisa realized that true courage was not the absence of fear, but the will to overcome it, fueled by love, and so they walked away from the darkness together, determined to build a future where shadows could no longer touch them. Now that you've reached the end of this spine-tingling tale, we need you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will keep your heart racing. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support for bringing more thrilling narratives to life. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let's discuss what lies ahead for Lisa and Jake. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.